staff. That 100,000 I think was brought up tonight, right? That was approved in the budget. So the budget that was approved by the voters, we voted on it. So it was, you had a budget committee budget, a school board budget, a default budget. That general fund budget that was voted in, that is adopted for next year. There could be changes to it. We could have another vote on a teacher's contract. That could happen. But that's not how we're setting these rates. So I take what was voted on and what is being appropriated. I break that out by level and divide that by the October 1st enrollment, elementary, middle, and high school.
The warrant article for the teacher's salary
Basically doesn't exist at this point
No,
because it
but
failed.
that was only the increase, or was it for the entire?
It was just the increase,
Yeah.
the cost of the increase.
Yeah.
It's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah.
You've already budgeted what the current cost
Yeah.
for teachers is.
Correct.
So
The
it
teachers were
only-
not taken out of the equation. This would be a very different figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very different.
Just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
This is,
It's only a potential increase. That's not
Correct.
reflected in these figures.
this to me is an indication that
No.
we
It's
are
110 only.
positioned with a great deal of overhead to administer in this district. And I direct you to the data task force information, the latest current one. On an expenditures per student basis, we're either 6th or 7th amongst our cohort districts in almost all of the categories. And the only thing I can point to is that we have 6 buildings and everybody else has either 4, 4, 4, 3, or 5.
You consider it too that your 6 building, the majority of buildings are what? They're elementary schools.
100 years old?
No, well, they're elementary schools and you're a lot lower on that number.
Right.
So you've got a lot of factors into this number that should be considered. The fixed cost of your buildings, you look at your facilities costs on the data task force, there's so many factors in there that a true analysis of that data is warranted to come up with really determining why. If you want to know some of the why answers to these questions, that analysis really has to be thoughtfully done.
I would also add, you might want to look at what your actual expenditures at the end of the year. So, for example, last year, if you gave back $350,000, that's not included in here. If you're going to give back $500,000 this year, that's not included in here. You know what I mean? So that's just another thing that brings that cost down.
It's not subtracted from this.
Right.
And do the other districts use the DOE tuition per pupil cost, which, like on our district, is different when you look it up than what the approved tuition cost is?
Well,
So if they use that.
we looked at per student costs or state-defined costs for the high school, middle school, and elementary school. And those rankings are in here as well.
Data task force sheet focuses a lot on prior years of DOE 25 data, which is our actual expenditures. And then the final sheet, we add in our budget as a point of comparison. Correct. For 2014, I made that, so that's our 2014 budget in comparison to prior years.
I see these numbers as showing kind of a focus on where we really need to use our resources. And from, previous meetings that we've had, it looks like, the elementary schools are pretty consistent in where they're going. And I think if we need, with the changes that we've been told that are being made in the middle school and high school, how can we not have those without raising the cost?
I just wonder why comparatively our cohort districts, these are, if you look at expenditures per student and you average them out, we're at 17,706 in the latest DTF. And there's only one district slightly higher than ours.
And in that data too, that he's talking about, you've got to realize you're using an average cost per pupil. If you're looking to explain why, again, I really caution you've got to do a really thoughtful analysis on this. Because if you want to know why in your district, you have to look at the factors and include an educational analysis, staffing analysis, and focus on you. That might alert you to things, but you really want to do a comprehensive analysis on that.
Am I correct in assuming there's really nothing we can do to change these numbers today?
No, you can't.
I mean, unless you want to change the budget, which you can have another deliver session and so on.
So these numbers are what they are, whether,
It's a straight calculation.
yeah.
I mean, you could ask me to take to the DOE a different way of calculating this and back out costs. But remember, if we have a special ed student coming in, there's an RSA very specific to how we would handle that, which goes back to our cost per pupil. You can do that versus from the DOE 25. So this is more for that student who lives in another community and wants to come to this school. Their parents or someone would have to pay that tuition rate. It does not affect students essentially being placed here.
I understand all those explanations, and I accept them as valid. However, we're now down to 1,182 students, down from 1,207 in the latest report. And that trend continues to head south. So eventually, people, we're not going to need one of these buildings. That's what it boils down to.
But as of tonight, what do we do about that?
Well, the point is that you have to continue to look at the data and decide what is the tipping point for this district. That's what it boils down to. And the trend is, to Mike's point that everything can be explained, the trend is very difficult to continue to go in that same direction. Something's going to have to be done.
Just to clarify, I definitely did not mean, I did not say everything can be explained. I think
your comment regarding the analysis is valid.
Okay.
It needs to be done carefully, and at least we have the data to look at the gross differences in districts. And it boils down to the personnel benefits that we give versus for our paras, for example, versus what other districts don't do for their paras. That's a big piece of it. The fact that we're a large district and we have a geography that requires a big transportation budget, that's a big piece of it. But it boils down to, there's always 6 buildings that we have to worry about. Heat, light, electricity, staff, administration. All the other districts that are doing it for less have fewer buildings. And with our trend continuing downward, eventually there'll be a tipping point. I don't know what that number will be, but eventually. So these numbers that are trending up pretty much in that direction for the high school and the middle school really tell me that there's consolidation in our future. And that's my personal opinion.
I hate to beleaguer the opinion, but also things to consider. I worked for a district that had the second lowest cost per pupil in the state. We had a significant number of buildings, but they had many more students in it. You have to start looking at things like class sizes. You can go on the district websites and say, why does Dover have, pretty quality programs, but the elementary schools are 21 to 28 kids per class. And we know from listening to, our community, you want class sizes of 15. So these are all variables that we struggle with.
Well, I contend that there are class sizes of 15 because we have over-resourced. We're over-resourced.
Anyway, I think we've gone way
That's
beyond
kind
the
of my point.
conversation around approval of the tuition rate.
Well, let me just inquire one thing. Would it be fair to say that subsidizing lunch has an effect on these numbers?
Yes. I'm sorry. It's Andrew.
Not for next year, because next year our budget is set, correct? So when I mentioned the lunch prices, if we are not able to raise that kind of revenue, then we cut within the program. We're still gonna meet our budget, we're not going over budget in the lunch program. So we make people part-time, we have to play games with labor. Our food costs, what's happening to that? Can I control that? Well, we're already part of a consortium for purchasing with multiple schools. We also take our consortium pricing that we want to bid with Cisco, and then we can still compare that monthly to get even better pricing. We do look at local vendors, and so we're constantly trying to get better pricing on food. We're at that threshold of really comes down to labor, and you're affecting the quality of your program. Get what you pay for. So
Okay, I would like to move on, if there's no further discussion on the tuition rate. We still have a few other things to talk about. Anyone else? All right, so that's an individual item, and that now brings us to the priority list for the unreserved fund balance, LK. I saw in Mike's report, his commentary about some possibilities on a priority basis for a total of $46,000. Is that what we're addressing here, Mike? Item K?
what was the question? I'm sorry.
The priority list is the $46,000 that we had in the report.
The administrators
Right.
and the board have contributed to that list, yes.
So I can address those. So I met with administrators, we've asked them for priority lists, while there were many other items, I tried to prioritize them for what was important, what I viewed as important, and so what we are moving forward is to look to purchase new Spanish textbooks for the middle school that are the same textbooks and align with the high school textbook, so we are using a different book. One of the comments made earlier, which I can confirm, is looking to purchase 130 chairs for the middle school so that every student has an appropriate chair to sit on. We can get rid of the 1920 wooden chairs and that students sit on, and actually put decent chairing within the entire middle school. Let's see, also at the middle school, looking for $4,000. So we have drapes in our classrooms, some aren't fire retardant, there's many that are ripped. Again, they just look really poor, so that would be able to replace those. And then we have $16,000 that would fulfill the remainder of New Hampton and Danbury for interactive whiteboards that would put them in the classrooms that didn't get them last year, as well as the software to go with it. And then, as Mike had already spoken about, $12,000 for the camera and the equipment for the board meetings as well as for the school.
Question on the drapes. If I remember right, a lot of them were stained.
Yeah. They're
So-
old.
Yeah, so are the new ones gonna get stained as well because of the condition of the windows?
We're doing a little research on that because blinds have the ability, so you have windows that open too, there's always a problem with that. So I did talk to one blind company because they're doing research at the school level. But blinds that look really good and here at an elementary school level get destroyed quickly. And Benny might be able to talk a little bit to that issue, the way that, I mean, it might seem nicer, it might be more attractive, they're also fairly expensive, but the drapes also act as a retardant against the cold air. Those are older windows, so they have some other benefits. There are definitely alternatives. There's sliders, blinds, and drapes really are your choices, from what I understand. That's what they're being researched.
So what's,
Well, getting back to the problem with the windows, these drapes are just the very tip of the iceberg for what is needed over there. Is that kind of what?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure there could be,
But
like,
I
new
also-
windows.
Yeah.
I don't want.
But this will at least-
School boards have addressed
I
these
don't
issues
want them
before
destroyed.
Right.
voted them down.
Yeah.
From staining.
I mean, obviously, we can't guarantee that, but our goal is to at least replace, I mean, I don't know how old they are, but I think Eric said they're like 20 or 30 years old. They're like
Oh,
ancient.
very, very
They're-
old.
Like original curtains.
the drapes being considered, are they thermal?
I don't know, I haven't researched them. The middle school is working on
Not for
that.
that price.
And the thing is, we did have some recaulking done on the windows, right? So perhaps that'll keep them from staining for a while. But you're right, I assume they would be thermal. but
Those are big
I'm not gonna
windows.
guess on that.
yeah, that's a
I
lot
don't
of
know where
times.
that $4,000 came from, but it isn't gonna do too many windows.
We'll do as many as we need to do. Or
I
can
think
do
at this
with
point, we're just
$1,000.
replacing the ones that are ripped and destroyed.
Any additional discussion on this recommendation?
I would suggest that if you're going to replace some, they be replaced with something from, some of those are really
certainly
price that.
resistant
Certainly look
on
at that,
that
yeah.
side too. Some of it's sort of a rubbery finish sometimes.
The fire,
They have to be
They have to be
Fire.
fire resistant, yeah.
Do we need curtains?
I say yes, only, I mean, because
Yeah.
the sun comes in, you have classrooms that keeps the cold out in the winter.
There's no like
I mean, I
pull
just,
down
yeah.
line.
There's currently drapes there, so if we were replacing them, we do have the alternative to put in blinds or sliders.
Something.
Those can often be more expensive,
Yeah,
depending on what you get.
and because they're the pull-in windows,
And I can tell you,
drapes, I mean, blinds don't really work because we'll break most of them.
they've come back in, one of the manufacturers have come back into a school where they put in beautiful blinds, and they were shocked how quickly they were destroyed. So I'm talking with one of the manufacturers just to get an idea for helping the school. I just can't recommend those. The person was appalled, like they spent a ton of money on them, and they were destroyed. When you look at the bottom line too, you have to remember there's a whole month of June spending that's not included in that, and that's budgeted for. There's a lot of supplies and items that are not included there. I want to just make sure that if you were to approve this list, at 530 is not what's going to be available. I would say there's probably another 100,000 in just regular spending. The items we're isolating specifically are not in the budget, and they would not be purchased if the board doesn't see fit to doing so.
So is there an additional list that you're saying?
Well, there's the normal purchasing, so for example, there's some computer capital purchases you don't, well, I have another theory on purchasing, things like that, but those have been, there's a $40,000 amount of money that's been set aside for replacing like the Mac lab at the school. We have not replaced that yet this year, so those items are definitely being purchased. But those are budgeted for and they're part of our tech plan. So there are items like that, some software-related purchases that we wait on. So if we get close to the budget at the end of the year, they're like, well, we're not gonna purchase those because they're not critical necessarily to, we could push the boundaries on some of those items, but we have done well in this budget. So those have been ordered. I can tell you that Dell's and our park are not encumbered in this report, but our purchase orders already are in now, so.
So is that going to reduce the 530, is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. Because they weren't encumbered prior, which we have in every monthly report. This report is showing you from the time that I ran it. So I just want to make sure that we understand that the month of June, we do some normal purchasing within the constraints of our budget. However, we know that we're not going to cover all that. We probably have about 100,000 in leeway in that, on what's being encumbered.
Okay. Any further comments on the priority list? Everybody okay with it? We will take a motion on that when the time comes. We're now at item L, request from NADA to open negotiations.
So you have a letter from Deidre, president of NADA, to reopen negotiations. They are not interested at this point. I've had lengthy conversations with them around timelines for a special election and those kinds of things, so they would like to just go back to the table and start over in the fall. So one of the requests you had, and we have some time, we can still schedule this in, your next meeting or July, is just to give them some possible dates to start meeting. So they would like to meet as early in September as we possibly can. So as soon as we're ready to give them some dates, I can get that to them. And we can confirm them up as soon as possible.
I
So,
would,
so there will be no change in their contract then for this coming year?
Correct,
so they've asked not to go that motion.
correct.
I would suggest that we consider deferring to the chair on this, what she may have in mind for that, before we take any action. That's my feeling at this point.
I just have a quick question.
Christine,
The entire board negotiates always?
that's what I'm talking about, deferring to what the chair has in mind. I think there may be a change to that.
I can certainly put that on the next agenda as a,
The past couple of years, that's been true.
With the entire board?
Yeah, and this past year logistically, Paul Reinhardt could not make all the meetings, so he did not participate, so there was 6 of us. That was when we were trying to set up future dates and meetings. So, at this point, I think this is more informational, unless we do want to act on it. That brings us now back to public comment under item 13. These are to be contacted or commented on as agenda items only per existing policy BDDH. Anyone from the public have comments on any of the agenda items? Okay. I don't hear any. That means we can now move on to a motion on the consent agenda. We have on the consent agenda 3 items: a field trip request, the first read policies, and the approval for the superintendent to hire and accept resignations until the next board meeting. Does anyone object to the consent agenda as it is proposed? Hearing no objection, I would call for a vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the consent agenda as structured passes 6-0-0 with Danbury being excluded. You have those 3 items, Leah?
Yes. Excuse me,
Thank
should
you.
there be a motion? No, somebody second one.
That's what I got.
Who made the motion?
Who made the motion?
Nobody motioned.
Nobody can.
Well, that's what a consent agenda is. If there's no objection, the consent agenda is that it's unanimous. There's no motion to pass the consent agenda. There's a request if anybody objects to it, in which case we would pull something off if they've changed their mind. The whole idea of a consent agenda is that there's no objection to it. So there is no motion. Okay, that brings us now to the motion on individual agenda items 12H, I, J, K, and L. First item is item H, approval to transfer $60,000 into the expendable trust fund. What is your pleasure of the motion, Leslie?
Yes, I would move to approve the transfer of $60,000 into the expendable trust fund, building maintenance, as long as we do have that fund balance, which I don't have.
The funds in our budget available.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dawn. Okay, additional discussion. This is now handled by the Bristol trustees, right?
Correct. I've actually met, if you're interested, I've met with, we have a meeting on Thursday with the PDIP, something depository in Concord. PDIP, it stands for Long Island. And that's where our funds are held. Fortunately for us, Bristol also has all their funds, cap reserves and trust funds held there as well. So it's a very simple changeover. So we'll be meeting with our good friend, Karen Colby, who is retiring this year. We are, and we're looking for, I don't know if we can put in a plug here for people to apply for her position. We haven't really received any applications, not good. But she's meeting, because she was listed as a treasurer, which she's not, and we're gonna have her changing the sign over, so I got the sign sheets today. And tax season's kind of waning for Betty. Yeah, Betty Sealer, who's the trustee, had a great conversation with her. Just puts a little bit extra work on her, but she's, you know, was really nice on the phone with us, and she's gonna be meeting with us as well, so that will entail a little bit more paperwork. We're developing that process, which is a little bit different. The board will still request funds, so it's no real change in your access to these funds. It's just getting you in line with the RSAs, and the trustees are kind of a shield, a little bit of a barrier.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to move to approve $60,000 into the expenditure trust fund? Building maintenance. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0-0. No abstentions, obtained votes. Okay, we're now into 12I, which is the setting of the lunch prices for 2014. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move that we accept the recommendation of Mike Lemoni to increase the school lunch rates by 25 cents.
Is a motion to accept the recommendation of the business administrator to increase lunch expense by 25 cents. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Ben. Additional discussion. Hearing no additional discussion, I would like to call for the vote. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? The vote is 5-1, with Danbury excused, Bridgewater being in the minority. Item 12J, approved tuition rates for the 2014-15 school year. I need a motion.
I move that we accept the proposed tuition rates the business administrator has given us for the high school of $19,364. Middle school, $18,194, and the elementary schools of $14,714.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Sue. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. Any abstentions? Danbury excluded. The vote is 5-1, 0-1, with Bridgewater being in the minority. Item 12K. Is there a motion to accept the list as proposed by our business administrator for unexpended funds use?
It's by the school administration, it's not by me, just for the record.
Hearing no motion,
Well, I just have a problem with the fact that I think the drapes are gonna be more. Is there some kind of flexibility that we can give for that?
I think you're gonna find, I don't know how many of those need attention, but I've chosen to stay out of that for obvious reasons. But I can suggest to you that they're going to be, whatever coverage you put over those windows are going to be expensive. For all the reasons that we discussed, fire retarding, if you want to look for insulation value, what else do you cost? I don't know, I'm a little reticent to spend that money given the upcoming possibilities. Gonna need something for a couple, 3 years.
So you don't know how many windows
We asked them to get quotes on damaged and the windows that need repairs. If there was like 4 damaged drapes and one wasn't, they're gonna replace the whole thing, you know, so it looks consistent. I can't tell you specifically. I'm gonna have to go on their research of pricing to get to that quote. I can tell you the middle school, it's gone through many board rounds of improvements that have all been voted down, which has left it in the state. It's been left to that for, you can keep not improving a building, eventually it'll become exactly what, I mean, if you want to shut it down, just let it fall apart. You know, that's, you know, so, yeah, it's unfortunate that it hasn't been improved, and a lot of money has gone into those efforts. You know, so, it's what it is, but this is a small repair.
Ben?
I'd like to make a motion that we expend the amount of $12,020 from the unreserved fund balance to purchase amplifiers, cameras, and controller as presented. And this is how we want to reference it.
I'll second that.
Well, I was actually gonna make a motion as well. I was gonna include the 3 items that have direct impact on the students. Would be the Spanish textbooks, the chairs, and the whiteboards.
Okay, so let's take the motion on the floor before us, which is made by Ben and seconded by me, for the $12,020 investment in improved audio-visual equipment. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions?
That would be me.
I'm gonna abstain as well.
Okay. So the vote is 4 in favor, no one opposed, 2 abstentions, that being Groton and New Hampton, with Danbury excused. Okay. Jeff, do you have a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we fund the Spanish textbooks, the chairs, and the whiteboards as their direct student impact items.
In the amount of?
You know, we can get out a calculator here.
1614.
Well, just give me the respective amounts.
9,700 for the textbooks,
Yeah.
5,106 for the chairs, and 16,000 for the whiteboards.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Don. Additional discussion. The motion before you is to fund the textbooks, the chairs, and the whiteboards, which pretty much excludes the drapes. Any further discussion?
I have another motion after this.
So far, I think he's gonna spend more, but,
You can motion for more if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, I can mention Vinny is excluded, he's excluded himself from bidding, which is an admirable thing considering, you know, you are an integral part of the board. But I would recommend, you can, when you take your expertise to the board, like Don has done auditing, that sharing that information can be valuable to the board. You're an expert in that area. You're not getting any monetary gain from providing an expert advice on subject matters like this.
I agree. I haven't had the time to go over and look at that.
Okay, sorry. You shouldn't have to feel bad about giving an opinion on something you're very good at, so.
So the motion before us is to fund 9,700, 5,106, 16,000, seconded by Don. Any further discussion on those items? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
And any abstention? Okay. No one's abstained, and Danbury's excused, and Bristol's in the minority. Okay, was there further action intended, Jeff?
Yeah, my final motion would be that we do a little more research on the classroom drapes and come up with a more realistic number.
I don't know if that needs to be a motion, but I agree that we should further define that.
So we need to spend the money before the end of the year.
So I could recommend, if you want, and you could say, I'll motion to allow the board to spend up to 10,000 on drapes given existing research on something like that. And clearly, we're trying to get the best pricing. We're obeying the purchasing, requirements of the board for quoting and whatnot. So
I'm just reluctant to spend money on garbage. I'd rather do it right.
Without knowing how many
I know.
of the windows that are involved, and I got a brief description. I don't know what to tell you. I just didn't spend the time to check it out.
If you have a minute, I can just search my email, see if they put in any details like that. I don't believe they did, but
No, I think that's this was.
there you go.
Well, and then if we find out it's too much money, we don't have to spend it, but if it's not enough, then that's all they'll be able to spend, they'll have to get less drapes. But at least there'll be something in there to help.
I don't have the specifics on that.
Who was the one that was doing the research?
There's $1,800 in bonds.
Who was the one that was doing the research?
I guess I think it was probably Norma.
It's probably Norma Barney with Eric Chase. Here's Eric's list.
It's not on there, it just says,
Okay.
make sure that they would be flame retardant.
I think they were looking at possibly blackout drapes. I do not, they weren't thermal drapes. They were probably enough to allow minimal sunlight and not complete blackout. I had those in my home, they're fairly expensive, but. So there were, and fire retardant was the key, they needed drapes. So I think they were looking at, like, if we make this too large, because these items can be very expensive and people look at them as window dressings. Right? So they needed the drapes and they're like, their target was like, go with the lower what met code and still did the job they needed to do, because right now the ones they have don't do anything.
Right.
So.
And so whatever the board approved, we'll make sure they're appropriate, and if we can't purchase all of them, we will come back next year. and budget or ask for
Well,
the
That's
rest.
the
or-
issue too.
I'll tell you.
Sorry.
Excuse me, this is a very different way than I'm bidding on other school business. And the specifications are exact. And we don't have that here, so I understand the challenge of trying to encumber the funds before the end of June.
They're going out to quote, they have exact specifications, I just don't have them with me. So their quote incorporates their specifications, and they came up with a $4,000 figure for flame retardant drapes to fix the ones that were ripped and damaged. And that was it. So they're not looking to do a mass scale. I mean, they used the exact quotes, and they were getting online quotes first, and then just to target them.
I'm surprised to hear it.
Well, he doesn't have anything to give us.
It seems like insulating drapes would help us a little on energy
But I
costs.
can't give you a number on that, given this, even if I had the exact specifications, probably the only one here that could do that off the top of his head would be Jenny.
I can give you a half a drape for that. For one window.
So if you double,
So we just need somebody to just give them.
Yeah. And we're working on-
Donation.
we're working on a few of those in
It's a great
town
tax
also.
write-off, right?
Did he have a consumer science program before? Involved sewing?
Yeah, I think Chris is a little more.
And Still gotta
I think
buy
that's
the
like, a
materials.
little more, yeah, a little more than
Fire
what they could
retardant
make.
material is the expensive stuff.
And for the specifications, these are flame retardant.
Yeah, flame retardant.
Yes.
So, what's your desire here, folks? Sounds like all they want is $4,000.
I would rather approve 10 grand and see if you can get
Hmm.
a little better.
Here's the problem I have with that. The specification is very clear, and we don't know what it is. But they've summed it up at $4,000, so apparently they did get quotes, because I was asked, I just declined. And I didn't go over and look at what they wanted to do, because she did say there was a few windows. But why?
She asked around she was first did her search for vendors. She did call you and I got your email and discussed with her. She got 2 vendors, I believe, that were willing to quote. One was in Manchester, and they actually said, "Well, hey, you got budget lines right down the street. Why don't you call them?" So, but they did quote, and they gave her the quotes. At some point, you can't do all this yourself. I do trust that they did their due diligence and they're handing in the quotes. You know, so this is their approximation from verbal confirmation for this meeting.
Okay. And I wouldn't add money to it because I'm not sure if there were even some other higher priority needs like at school.
When looking at like where they would spend the money, they probably did not prioritize the need for them to be thermal. We did have an energy audit of that building. We've done a lot of energy related improvements, including the coping and the windows and so on. So.
Anyway, they asked for 4,000, just approve 4,000 if
Yeah,
they,
I
if you want to
don't
approve
see
that.
why not, you know, they're not asking, and they did what we asked them to do. Don't sit there and try to redecorate your building, which they did not. Can you get more expensive line? Can you do more than this? Of course, but I believe that you should go with their recommendation. If they wanted to have other choices in that, they could have provided them. This was from a list of priorities, we took a lot of stuff off that list that shouldn't have been there.
Okay. Was there a motion to approve 4,000? There will be one abstention on this one.
I would move to approve.
Okay. Sue moves to approve $4,000 request for fire retardant window treatment.
Screens missing. That
Why
requires
is it
new
fire
windows.
retardant window treatment?
Different ballgame.
Flexibility. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dawn. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we have 3 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 abstention. Bristol is opposed and Bridgewater is abstained.
Maybe have to be abstaining.
I'm sorry, 2 in favor, 1 opposed, which is Bristol, 1 abstention, which is Bridgewater, and
F3,
There's
4.
3.
I think we have 3, yes.
oh, Jeff was in favor?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you abstained, I'm sorry.
No.
3-1-1-1. Bristol opposed, Bridgewater abstained, Danbury excused.
Hampton abstained.
I'm sorry.
It's the time.
It's 10:42.
3-1,
And all meetings at 10
2-1.
o'clock.
I just said that to see who was
I don't think
listening.
anyone can make
Just
a
stop
decision.
when we are.
Oh,
It's
yes.
3-1, 2-1.
Yeah, I was trying to.
Well, there was confusion because there was a lot of reluctance on everyone's part.
Hampton and Bridgewater have abstained. Okay, sorry about that. I think we're approaching the witching hour.
And it's tabled.
So, that takes care of 12K. I'm gonna suggest that there be a motion to table action on the NADA request. Would anyone like to table that?
I move that we table the native request for negotiation.
Is there a second? Seconded by Christine. Okay, motion's not debatable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 6-0-0 with one excused. Back to Andrea. Now, we did public comment, we did that. Financial, we're now at the time to approve the illegal approval of manifests that are done post facto.
And I think we're talking about May. So, have two people other than myself sign May. So it looks like we're going to wait on May.
Well, when you did May, was my check mark there?
I did not do May, that's what I mean.
Oh,
So did
okay.
two other people do it? Because I did not.
Oh, okay.
The answer is no. No manifests.
No manifest at this time.
Are there any announcements and recognitions?
I have a couple.
Stacy?
I want to welcome Allison Smith, who will be your new student rep next year. She was elected recently, and so she will start, she's a junior this year. She'll be a junior next year.
She heralds from Hebron.
Perfect.
Allison Smith.
I also want to welcome back Mimi as our faculty staff rep.
Yeah.
We had nobody run, so Mimi agreed to run again. Just some dates coming up also to put in your book. June 11th, we have the Bridgewater Hebron 195 withdrawal finance subcommittee at 5:30 at the SAU office. On June 13th, which is Friday, high school baccalaureate at 6:30 here at the high school. June 14th on Saturday at 9:30 is graduation. Monday, June 16th will be the Bridgewater Hebron withdrawal. That's the full committee meeting at 6 o'clock at the high school. On June 16th is also grade 8 graduation promotion. I will be at graduation promotion, and then we'll come to the meeting after that. Currently, I'm a guest speaker. June 18th is the staff breakfast. So that's just a reminder. I know we talked about that. 7:30. Staff will be there at 8.
About an hour? 2 hours?
Yeah, we scheduled breakfast from 8 to 9 with the acknowledgements at 9. I anticipate that to be probably half an hour at the most. And on July 16th, we have that as a P&D for the board evaluation, board goal setting. I just don't have a location for that.
July 16th?
Yes. And I just didn't know if the board wanted to decide where you wanted to have that meeting, remembering that it is summer.
How about the New Hampton Fire Station?
I was been trying to get us over there.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Can't hear
So
very
that
well
was
though.
July 16th.
July
What do
16th.
you mean in that room? The air conditioner will be on?
We haven't been in the other, is there a smaller one besides where we have our bigger meeting? There's also that meeting, Stacy, on the 19th, right,
26th.
of June, organization meeting.
Education.
Yes.
Oh, hold on, my calendar.
Right, that's the-
I think I did the agenda for it. Right, that's the education subcommittee at 5:30 at the SAU office as well.
What day was that? What day was that? 19th? All right.
And what's the July 16th one again?
16th.
That's a board meeting, that's a P&D meeting where, look at, review your evaluation and set your goals. I just need to know where you want to have it, so we can post it out.
The planning and dialogue. one of Libby's intents was to have more of the locals come to that meeting. Then nobody from Bristol showed up to go on. So I don't know whether that was because of lack of advertising.
They advertise in the same places.
Maybe people just haven't gotten used to the concept again. It helps us to see all the schools too, in that way.
Which we didn't do because we have to, non-public, took so long.
Any other announcements?
My two comments about that.
So I don't know where we want to have that meeting.
I really would like to suggest if you could arrange for the rented safety building. It's only a mile from here.
The highway.
I will ask them. I don't know what their schedule is.
Is that a Monday?
It's a Wednesday.
For Wednesday, we have a chance, because for a Monday, that'd be a problem.
Don't they have a radio test or something on Wednesdays?
They may, we'll find out. I know they have something on
I don't know
Monday.
what their schedule is.
Location to be determined. And don't forget, we have what we're calling a P&D for
Yep.
Project Promise on the 26th, Thursday, the 26th. Okay, any other announcements?
I just want to say that I can't make it to the graduation because I'll be out of the state. And I think this is only the second one I've missed, and I thoroughly support our seniors even though I can't make it. I'm sorry.
I was at the award, I had to hand out a scholarship, and it was a really nice experience, a pleasure. Though I made a mistake with some words, but, you know, it was really great to see those kids and just that coming up and keep getting their awards and their scholarships, and it's a good thing.
My wife also gave out a scholarship at the awards, and she was impressed by it.
She did?
I know, that's what I know.
Okay, any other announcements or recognitions? Okay, I don't hear any, so we're gonna move on to other business, item 18. Does anyone have other business? I don't see any. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Item
adjourn.
19.
The second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.